Hey everybody, Jonah Dempsey here, and I'm at Anderson Park in Sydney, Australia. We're going to do a deep dive on certainty. All right, for this deep dive, we're going to be using keynotes from Dave and Shan, Dave Powers and Shannon Renee of the Objective Personality System, the founders of the system. And these are some of the keynotes that they use when they're typing someone to determine if that person is certainty or if they are uncertainty or variety. And so I'll just be doing the certainty keynotes today. I don't want to give too many keynotes. It can be, a lot to reflect on, but we're going to do a deep dive, which means we're going to go a little deeper than the last couple of videos looking at certainty. If you do get into objective personality, or maybe you're already into it and you're watching their videos, Dave is a certainty guy and Shan is an uncertainty gal. So you can kind of see the difference in certainty and uncertainty watching them and getting a sense of which they are. Okay, certainty has a way. This is one of the keynotes Dave uses to describe certainty. This is the way. This is my way. This is a way. This is the way it's done. They have a way. What that means is certainty is more in touch with their known information, and they believe that the solution to the problem, they're more likely to believe that the solution to the problem is in something they already know. That if they just organize the data they already have, if they're just able to go over what they already know, they'll find the answer. So certainty is sort of past oriented with a caveat, which we'll see in a little bit in this video, that it's kind of an interesting twist in terms of their relationship to the past versus uncertainty people. But generally speaking, this has a way means that the certainty person has a sense that the answer is already in their known information, and all they have to do is find it. Not out there, but in something they already know. An uncertainty variety person, particularly if they have consume, which is one of the coins in the objective personality system, but even if they have play, which is the other coin that includes uncertainty as a human need, either way, they are going to tend to think that there's something new or novel or that the future holds the answer, that we just need more information. We're not ready to make a decision yet. We need more info. We don't yet have a way. We have to gather more info to find the way. Whereas the certainty person is going to say, oh, I have a way. I know how to do that. I have a way. Okay, the next one, same story. If you're looking at uncertainty people, they're going to tell you new random. So I'm an uncertainty person. Hey, Jonah, what's Australia like? Oh, it was great. I went to this great Indian restaurant and I was out at a rooftop bar yesterday with a great view, and I've been trying Australian craft beer, and I saw some wild turkeys and lizards in the yard. It is new random. These are the stories that you get from me. I'm an uncertainty person. Because I'm also a significance person, you're going to get new random about self. So how do we tell somebody has certainty as a human need, as their prioritized human need? Of course, everyone, as I've said many times before, everyone has all the needs. How can we tell that someone's a certainty person, meaning that they prioritize the human need of certainty? They'll tell you the same story. It's the same story. It's a story they've already told before. It's a story they already know. It's the same story rather than new random. All right, the next keynote Dave uses is concludes. They will conclude. You can tell I'm not a certainty person because I often don't have a strong conclusion, or my conclusion amounts to, all right, talk amongst yourselves, discuss. My conclusion isn't really, and here's the moral of the story, and here's the point. It's more like I give you a consume report. I'm a uncertainty significance person, so I love variety and it's relevant to me. And when those two things are together in the objective personality system, we call it consume. So I consume a lot, and then I tell you what I've consumed, and this is my consume report. Concludes. Okay, so our first three, has a way, certainty has a way. The second, same story, certainty tells the same story. The third, concludes, comes to a strong conclusion. In conclusion, here's the point, and so on. Fourth, narrows. They will narrow down. Now, it might seem like I'm narrowing down, and certainly I'm capable of narrowing down, but by and large, I'm keeping my options open and I'm painting a picture by sort of moving around from different vantage points and approaching the same issue from different approaches. And it's not really the same thing as narrowing down. I would say narrowing down is not as comprehensive, right? I'm an uncertainty person, so I give a more comprehensive approach. Ra was an uncertainty person, so his approach to human design is extremely comprehensive. He approaches things from so many different angles. It's like a vast array of approaches and ways of looking at things and applications, so many different ways you can apply the same knowledge, right? That's what uncertainty does. But just imagine if Ra were certainty, how different human design would be. If he were a certainty guy, he would have narrowed down. I guess in some ways he did. It was probably triumphant for him. Things like strategy and authority or type, these great simplifications, are sort of examples of the arduous effort it took an uncertainty person to finally narrow down. And then the fifth keynote that we have from Dave here, shoves away new. Certainty people will shove away the new. It's like, hey, Dave, here's something new, random for you to check out. No, I'm not interested, right? So many people try to get him as a certainty guy to incorporate different systems into objective personality or look at different original research, and he's just not interested. He shoves away the new. So these are Dave's keynotes: has away, same story, concludes, narrows, and shoves away new. Now there's another one that Dave talks about, which is chapter talk. Chapter talk means you finish the chapter before going on to the next. So if you're being interviewed and asked about your life, and someone tries to kind of move it along or ask a random question, you say, now hold on, I just need a minute to finish what I was saying there. Or if you come to the natural end, you might even have like a double checking or triple checking to make sure you've said everything you want to say. Now, this doesn't mean uncertainty people won't do this. I do this. As I get through one of these videos, I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, did I say everything I want to say? Did I cover it? Okay, I covered all the bases. Great, let's go. So that's not what chapter talk is. Chapter talk is, I guess, the example that Dave uses is Kurt Cobain. And there's some Kurt Cobain interviews where he really talks about his life in chapters. Oh yeah, that was the chapter of my life when I was doing this or when I was doing that. Now, again, I do a bit of chapter talk and I'm an uncertainty person. So we have to be careful here because I think if you really look for it, it's like these are things we have to kind of look for and then try to recognize what Dave means by these keynotes, particularly because as a certainty person himself, he's narrowed down his way of describing something and he means something very narrowed down. It's not really a general thing. So chapter talk, what does Dave mean by this? I take it as certainty people are more likely to make sure that they've concluded. This is kind of like conclusion, right? Where it says concludes. They have a strong conclusion and then they conclude before moving on. Whereas as an uncertainty person, I'm more likely to leave things open and go back to them and explain more later. All right. Certainty people get anxious when there are too many options. So this one's kind of mind-blowing to me because I'm an uncertainty person. I'm like, why are you anxious? Like, do you go into a library and you're anxious because of all the books? Do you go on the web and you're anxious because there's too many websites? Like, it doesn't really, but I've seen it. It's the anxiety that the option is there, even if the chances of using that option are very slim. So in a relationship, the certainty person wants to eliminate friendships with potential romantic partners that could interfere, even if that person's not going to be a romantic partner, right? So as an uncertainty person, I might be in a committed monogamous relationship, but have a number of friends who could be converted into romantic partners should that situation ever arise. But, and from my view, I'm like, they're not. It's no threat. There's no problem. They're just friends. But to the certainty person, this could be a real threat or a real problem because it's like, yeah, they're not, but they could. Just the could itself causes anxiety, just the possibility. So you'll find that certainty people are probably more likely to get married or to sign multi-year leases or to do things that sort of lock them in. There's a sort of a lock-in where it's like, now I'm locked in. I don't have to think about it anymore. Like all those options are gone. And they actually have a good point. Each of these needs has a point. We all have a need for some level of certainty because there is an invisible cost that wears us down of having too many options open. Okay, when you combine certainty with significance, you get sleep. These are people who have resolved things, processed things. They won't jump in, and they'll tell you the same story about the self. So the same story about self is an interesting one there. When you combine it with connection and love as a human need, they give lessons, they jump in more, they can be more overextended, and they can control others and tell the same old story about other people. So that's called blast in the objective personality system. So sleep and blast, those are sort of the two forms the human need of certainty takes, whether it's combined with significance or with connection and love. So now let's do a deep dive on what it means to be resolved. Being resolved can look like being unresolved to an uncertainty person like me, because the uncertainty person is keeping the possibility alive, doing a lot of work processing. The certainty person has resolved past tense and will refuse to further process. So this is probably the most complex, sort of interesting part of our deep dive on certainty here. And I'm just going to kind of use this as the final point to ponder. I'm an uncertainty person. And what that means is I will often be unresolved or unprocessed about the past. And yet I will spend way more time processing it. So I don't even think unprocessed is the right word. They'll say unprocessed because the uncertainty person has a reputation to be addicted to the new and addicted to the future and constantly taking in the new and kind of moving on to the next thing, the next, the next, the next. And yet I spend so much time and energy processing, but I often will do it externally with other people. So if I'm in a relationship with someone, we have a fight, a few days go by, I may not process in that interim. And then we see each other again, and I'm almost like respectfully waiting to process with them. But if they are a certainty person, they may have already come to their own conclusion, come to their own resolution, processed it all to them by themselves. And it feels almost rude to me because I'm like, you already processed this by yourself. You're not even waiting to have an open communication about this where we can process together. You just did all the processing on your own. You could have just sent me a text or an email, because then when we meet, they're just delivering almost a prepared message to me instead of processing in real time together. So the interesting nuance here is that I'm an uncertainty person, so I'm theoretically addicted to the future. And yet, because I don't process on my own as much, I'm unresolved and I've sort of left things open. I haven't closed the door on a prior possibility, things like that. And in some sense, then I'm actually more in touch with the past. Whereas the certainty people, who are supposedly in love with the same old and familiarity and shoving away the new, because they will make things resolved, they're quicker to make something part of their past. So they're quicker to end a relationship that's not working and then to cut off that person and not give them any more chances, and then to basically be like, that was the past, and not ever talk to that person again. And it's mind blowing to me because to me it feels very unresolved. It feels like they actually haven't put the energy in to process and resolve things. So they're quicker to rush to processed. They're quicker to rush to resolved, which to an uncertainty person like me looks like they're not processing and not resolving. Or maybe they are resolving, but in some like bizarro way of just like deciding to close the door on something. It's very unusual. And so that's one of the sort of nuances and the interesting aspects of the certainty uncertainty dichotomy, which is that certainty loves the familiar, shoves away the new, and yet they're quick to let something become the past. Uncertainty, like me, loves the new, runs away from the old, and yet takes a very long time to allow something to become the past, holds on a lot longer to the possibility of saving a relationship or things of that nature. Thanks for watching.